Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PDPreps podcast. This is episode 12. It is currently election day, November 8th, 2022. It is a Tuesday. My name is Keenan O'Doherty, one of the sports reporters here at the Press Democrat, alongside my colleague and co-host Gus Morris. Gus, 12th podcast here already. I mean, things are flying by, but guess what? We're in the playoffs now. Five league titles were decided this past weekend, but I don't think none of them were more important than the game you were at, and we're going to get right into it. Game of the week last week, Windsor Cardinal Newman. Surprises, maybe some controversy. Gus, just talk to me about how that game went.
Man, yeah, this one had it all. Final was Windsor 14, Cardinal Newman 13. Windsor wins on the last play of the game with no time left on the clock. Wyatt Morris, Windsor running back, scores from 2 yards out. Kyler Behrens, their place kicker, kicks the game-winning PAT. Windsor goes crazy. Nuts, totally crazy game. First league title for Windsor. They clinched the NBL Oak title outright. A Newman win would have created a logjam three-way tie. We've talked about this a lot, but Newman wins at Rancho Cotati. Rancho Cotati would have gotten the automatic playoff berth. And I know that Rancho Cotati was watching that game with very intently, kind of seeing how it would play out. But Windsor comes away with the win. First time they've ever beaten Cardinal Newman in school history. A monumental win for them in their program. And head coach DJ Sexton over there in his first year, beating his alma mater, the school that he coached at for a number of years. Again, we keep joking, but we keep doing well with picking our games of the week.
Absolutely.
And we did it again this week. Like you mentioned too, some controversy for sure at the end. And this is a game that I don't think the Cardinal, and I wrote about this in my analysis piece over the weekend, but this is a game that Cardinal Newman will not forget anytime soon. There were a number of penalties in the second half that they felt were unfairly called. And the biggest of all was a pass interference call on what would have been the last play of the game. With 4 seconds left, Windsor was at Newman's 4. Judson Anderson, Windsor's quarterback, scrambles, kind of throws a bit of a lob ball into the end zone. Joseph Smith is the intended receiver, covered really intently by Windsor or Newman I think his linebacker, Kaise Steverson. Good. It looked like good coverage, and he knocks the ball away. When Newman starts to celebrate, and the back line judge calls a PI, and Windsor gets one last chance, literally zeros on the clock, last play of the game, and that's where Wyatt Morris scores, and Windsor wins the game. So, that penalty, it changed the game from a Newman 13-7 win to a Windsor 14-13 win. And again, like I said, Newman people are not going to forget about that anytime soon, but. We'll get more into that here in a sec, but I want to talk about the game as a whole because it was a really interesting game kind of from both perspectives here. But early on, it looked like Newman was going to kind of run away with it. They opened the game 13-0. They score on their first possession of the game. Get a big third down conversion. Matthew Hilton punches it in from 1 yard out. 6-0 to start because they actually missed the PAT, which now in hindsight, one missed PAT, in the first 5 minutes of the game apparently, was also a big difference maker in this game. But 6-0 to start. Windsor comes back. They start running the ball really well with Hayden Anderson, who started again at quarterback for his brother Judson. I know Judson had been dealing with a bit of an injury, but Judson also came in kind of later in the game. But Hayden, they were chunking the ball, big plays, and all of a sudden, Windsor goes for a pass play, and then Hayden gets picked off by Jamari Gentry. Newman comes back down, and then Kaise Steverson 31-yard touchdown, and all of a sudden it's 13-0. I think this is within like the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game, and all of a sudden everyone's kind of thinking like, oh man, this is not, I think I had picked Windsor, you had picked Newman to win, but we knew Windsor was our number 1 overall team, Newman was our number 3 overall team. This is going to be a tight battle, and for a moment there it was like, oh my God, is Newman going to kind of run away with this? And then Windsor's next possession, it looked like that might kind of keep happening. Windsor actually is forced to punt. And they get a huge break. Newman mishandles the punt. Windsor recovers it at Newman's 14. And then Wyatt Morris gets the scoring started for the Jaguars and punches it in from 8 yards out. So I mean that muff punt. I mean, again, if Newman had properly secured that and scored again, I mean, we're looking at a legit 20 to possibly 20 or 21 point deficit in the first quarter. for Windsor. And their offense, I mean, again, we'll get into the more of this here in a sec, but like their offense was not like Newman did a really, really good job defensively up until kind of that last drive. But it was, defensive battle, which I don't think neither of us really expected. I thought that there might be kind of a lot of points in this one and that was not kind of what happened. But so after Wyatt Morris's first touchdown, it was 13-7. That's kind of where the score stood at the half. I believe Joseph Smith also had an interception to end the first half of Matthew Hilton. Kind of stopped what looked like a nice kind of last minute drive from Newman. But yeah, 13-7 at the break. And then the third quarter happened. And I think I was on the sidelines. I was over on Windsor's sideline. And yeah, I mean, everyone was just kind of muttering like, this is bad. This is bad football. And like, I'll agree. As having covered both of these teams all season, like, for, multiple times this season, I'm used to seeing them play better. This was just this is not great football. And maybe it was just like, both of their game plans were, looking really nice and they were executing well, but it just kind of seemed like neither team could get anything going offensively. And there were penalties and I have a bit of a breakdown here, but so Windsor gets the ball to open up the second half. They go on an 11-play drive that nets them 27 yards, which is not good. You don't want to see that. They also had 3 penalties. Newman had 2 kind of in that little span, but they get to like midfield and they have to punt. And at this point, kind of both teams' offenses had kind of devolved into just like run up the middle, run up the middle, run up the middle. And like, they were kind of getting a few nice gains here or there, but like there were no explosive plays, which we've seen quite a bit with both these teams. So anyway, Windsor opens, long drive, doesn't really get anything. They have to punt. Newman gets the ball back about midway through the third. Their first 3 of their first 4 plays are penalties. And so this is kind of what Newman people were complaining about of, stuff of like, we were, penalized, like way more than Windsor was, and the refs were unfair and yada, 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 yada. And some of these plays, I had it down as the first play was a Newman false start. Second play was a Newman holding. Third penalty was a delay of game. So a few of those are just self-inflicted. Holding calls are kind of subjective, obviously, but there's another holding call kind of later on that forced them actually eventually to punt. But yeah, for the second half, and this is kind of a crazy stat, but I had Newman down for 11 penalties and only 13 offensive plays. So that's not what you want to see out of your offense, especially kind of, in a big game second half when you have a lead. So anyway, again, 3 of their first 4 plays, had penalties on them. And ultimately it was an 8-play, 29-yard drive that featured 4 Newman penalties and they had to punt, which those 2 numbers combined there, like 19 plays for, what is that, 56 yards combined?
That is ugly, man.
Like, what did I say? It's like I said, it's like we're used to seeing these teams play really, really well, and it would just disappeared for a whole quarter. So end of the third, still 13-17. Fourth quarter starts also not great. Newman has to punt the ball back to Windsor. Newman again, 9-play, 39-yard drive. They get to about midfield. They have to punt again. At this point, Newman gets the ball back with about 6 minutes left. And I remember that punt thinking like, oh my God, if Newman gets a few first downs here, this game's over. Like, I punting with six minutes left. You kind of have to in that point if you're Windsor, but like, man, it's like you got to trust your defense here to get a stop. And get a stop they did. Newman got the ball back with about 6 minutes left. There was a big holding call early on that pushed them back, I think, to about 1st and 18. I think Santino Acevedo had a nice long run. They had that wiped away by this holding call. They were facing a long 1st and like 20 almost, and they went 3 and out, and they had to punt. And that was the last time that they had the ball in the game. Newman gets the ball back, or Windsor gets the ball back, 4 minutes left at their 15. Start to drive, obviously crowd's starting to go nuts. This is like this is it. This is like the last play, the last sequence of the game. Windsor needs to get their offense going. Nothing's been working all second half. They get the ball to midfield thanks to a personal foul call on Santino Acevedo. Looked like a helmet-to-helmet hit. That was another one that Newman people didn't think was called appropriately from where I was. It looked a little more aggressive than I think for the screenshots and the replays and the slowdowns. Every angle you're going to have different perspective on it. From where I was at, it looked pretty intense. Again, that's a judgment call on the refs. They called it a personal foul. But this drive again results in Newman or Windsor working all the way down to Newman's 19-yard line with about 20 seconds left. And here's the final sequence. So Judson Anderson 4-yard run, face mask call on Newman. So they get all the way down to again, a face mask call that Newman people didn't think was a face mask. Windsor gets all the way down to Newman's 10, 16 seconds left. Judson Anderson 6-yard run to the 4, 9 seconds left, timeout. I think 2 timeouts were called at that point, one by Windsor, one by Newman after they came back out. 9 seconds left. Judson Anderson rolls out left, throws a pass to Max McFerrin, who's wide open in the end zone, just goes through his hands. He misses it. And everyone's like, oh my God, like that would have won the game right there. And the replay too, there's replay out there for sure. YSN was broadcasting the game, so we got a couple good angles of it, but yeah, just slipped through McFerrin's hands. So that led to final play of the game, 4 seconds left at Newman's 4, and this is the PI call. So Judson, scrambles a bit, lofts one up to Joseph Smith, PI call on Steverson. Windsor gets one last chance, 2-yard run from Wyatt Morris. They win the game. So a crazy ending, not a very great game, kind of in the middle, but a nuts ending. I was kind of looking at this being like, this is kind of a total clunker. And then it did kind of, the ending kind of will go down as an instant classic. But for Newman people, again, this one is going to sting. I know it's all weekend for them. There was a lot of, talking about the refs and if they, like some of the play calling, or not the play calling, but some of the penalties that were called on them. So anyway, I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the penalties. I want to talk about again how awesome this game was, but I think forever this one will be kind of remembered for a lot of those penalty calls in the second half. So
yeah. Quick question on especially that last sequence. What was each team's timeout situation like? So that final play, Windsor was completely out of timeouts. Correct?
There was no timeouts left. I think both teams were completely out of timeouts. I think they had used all of them. I think kind of in that final drive. I actually have my notes right here, but yeah, when Newman took a timeout with about 20 seconds left, Windsor took a timeout with 16 seconds left. Windsor took its final timeout with 9 seconds left. And then Newman took its final timeout with 9 seconds left. So there was no time on the clock. I mean, literally, it's like that final play.
Was it.
That final play that Wyatt Morris had, I mean, that was it. Like, there was no time on the clock. It didn't matter what happened after that. That was the final play of the game, no matter what. And he cashed it in after the PI, of course. So
I mean, honestly, like you say, Newman parents aren't going to live that one. They're going to live that
and
PI
I think
call down.
I think a lot of the Newman players too who return next year will have that one in their mind as well for the game.
Well, it's not something that just Newman will be talking about. An entire Sonoma County will be talking about it. All the NBL will be talking about it. I mean, this is going to be that sequence that you described just there is definitely going to be one for the record books, one for the history books. Especially for Windsor being its first NBL title. So it's, I mean, man, that's just it seems like that final sequence made up for what was a interesting third quarter /
kind of a lackluster third quarter gave way to a crazy finish. But yeah, I mean, I guess kind of the last, I mean, again, a few other notes here, but Wyatt Morris, great game for him. Both touchdowns for Windsor, 71 rushing yards on 16 carries. Newman did a great job at limiting Hayden Anderson. 12 carries for 68 yards. Almost all of those came in the first half. His brother Judson, it was funny before the game, again, he had been kind of dealing with like a minor injury, apparently. And I asked DJ, I'm like, hey, their head coach, I'm like, hey, so is Judson going to play today? He's like, well, hopefully we don't need him, hopefully this game goes well enough that, we can just leave Hayden in the whole time and we'll be fine without Judson. But they needed to throw the ball at, like later in the game. So Judson came in. He also ran, I think, 11 times for like 40 something yards. So he was, I mean, Judson really came in and delivered it in a big spot, especially where Newman and game plan really well against Hayden Anderson. So that big credit to Newman's defense, because I think 14 points is for sure a season low for Windsor. I think it's the first time they might have been held under 20 all season too. So just a really, really strong defensive performance from Newman. But I know that they were, again, very upset that they felt that the game was taken out of their hands in that kind of with that final sequence there.
Right.
And I guess kind of last thing I'll say about this PI, because people, are again talking about this forever, but because YSN, they're broadcasting, live streaming, a service. They were there broadcasting the game. They had multiple angles of the final play, face on from the end zone, different angles and stuff, which you don't often, you don't often get in high school, especially
Exactly.
especially on a game kind of that, of this magnitude where it's decided by this kind of play. So, we kind of have a front on angle. We have like a bit of a side angle. I was right there on the Windsor sideline. I had kind of a closer angle to it. But the one angle that we don't have that I think is key to this play is the back angle, which is what, again, it was the back line judge who made this final call.
Exactly.
And we don't have any of that angle, but from the video that I took, you can kind of see Kaiser Steverson's red glove wrapped around the back of Joey Smith, the Windsor receiver. And that I've seen that as being kind of a screenshot of that moment as like, hey, see, he had his arm wrapped around his back, whatever. But I think that is probably what, from the back line judge's angle perspective, that's what he probably saw. He saw Kaiser Steverson's arm wrapped around the back of this defender as he's making a play on the ball. So again, we can argue if it was PI or not forever. It doesn't change the result, but I'm just trying to put myself into the perspective of that referee and thinking,
sure,
what did he see that made him make this call? I'm not a huge fan of a game being decided on a call like that. I'll be honest, just because I think unless it's completely flagrant, unless it's you have to make that call, I think that's where you do make the call. I think this one could have gone either way, and I'm not a huge fan of it being decided by that. But the referee made the call, and there's nothing that we can do about it. So
exactly.
in the end again, I don't want to take anything away from Windsor's win. They had a game-winning drive. They scored when they needed to. They did the things that they had to do to win. And I think that's what this game should be remembered for. But again, unfortunately, people will always remember the penalties and the calls and what went against them, what went for them. But that's sports, not everything breaks.
I know.
So, anyway, epic game, crazy game. But again, in the end, it's, Windsor emerging unscathed, the perfect 5-0 from the NBL Oak, which I don't think either of us saw happening this year. So,
not at all. Not at all. Yeah, and I mean, like you said, kind of last point on this. Credit to, I mean, Windsor's been playing great ball all year, so it's not like Windsor didn't deserve to win or Newman deserved to win or anything like that. Windsor,
absolutely,
Windsor is the champion for a reason. They've been playing great ball. They won where they needed to. Knocked out Rancho Cotati. Now knocked out Cardinal Newman. Made statements. Wins where they needed to against the other teams in the division. Monty, Annalise, Santa Rosa. They took care of business when they needed to, and credit to the Jaguars, because this is I know this is a big statement win and statement title in their history books. So yeah, Windsor playing great ball this year, and now that they're rolling in the playoffs, look to keep that momentum.
Absolutely. Anyway, moving on. That was the NBL Oak. Keenan, you were at the NBL Redwood Championship game on Saturday. St. Vincent, Maria Carrillo, tell us about that one.
Yeah, St. Vincent. So it was interesting to kind of like, it was not really sort of like your game a little bit, but it kind of was. It was really interesting. All the offense happened in the first half. Kai Hall rushed for 3 touchdowns. That's all they really needed offensively. 10-yard scamper, a 48-yard score, and then a 35-yard TD. So obviously, with that being said, all eyes are on Hall and the Redwood Empire record, which is still Joe Trombetta's as of now. Joe Trombetta was a Casa Grande grad. Did set the record for 5,447 total rushing yards from 2003 to 05, which Gus and I were talking about off camera is pretty darn impressive. Do that in like 3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But if Kai gets his record, it's kind of almost like a 3.5-year stint because of that COVID year. He only played a handful of games. So Kai's final stat line: 18 rushes, 137 yards, 3 touchdowns. Currently 95 yards away from the record. We know they. I was at the game, and St. Vincent Sideline was kind of talking about it as the game went on. Trent Herzog asked me to keep him, keep him, keep him updated and things like that. But I don't think Kai was the biggest takeaway here. Obviously, we know what Kai can do. We know what their offense is like, but this was easily the best game the Mustangs defensive line has played all year long. They were giving Tommy McPhee fits in the backfield. They were giving Gio Lucchese and Logan Bruce fits in the backfield. I think Cam Vaughn, after the game, told me that he thinks he's a pass rusher now because he had 2 sacks on pass plays. Nathan Rooks had a couple sacks as well, plus many tackles for loss. So yeah, it was a defensive line showing for sure by St. Vincent, and this is kind of what the defensive line needed to show in order to gain momentum going into playoffs, to show that look, this defensive line is the real deal, and led by those seniors plus some of the young guys like Robert Rooks, man, they can certainly go far in playoffs. But second half was a completely different story. Credit to Jay Higgins and company on Korea's sideline for their adjustments. They completely shut Kai Hall down. They shut St. Vincent's offense down. For example, Kai's last 7 rushes, Gus, 0 yards, 1 yard loss, 1 yard gain, 2 yard gain, 3 yard
Wow.
gain, 5 yard gain, 1 yard loss.
Wow.
Um,
That's
yeah,
not
that was
often.
pretty.
That's not often you hear Kai with those kind of numbers. And it was
Yeah,
funny because I was following the game, obviously, remotely on Twitter, and I think you and I think like West Coast Preps, who was also there, was like kind of updating, like, all right, record, close to the record, close to the record. Then at halftime, it was like Kai's like 100 yards away from the record, and then those updates stopped in the second half.
yeah. It was. He was at 100. He was at 101 point. And he only got like 5 yards in his last
Yeah,
carry,
that's
so
crazy.
95. But and again, going back to that defensive line play, kind of set things up for the defense to make plays. Tobias Klein had a 30+ yard pick six, kind of cement that victory for St. Vincent. They were up 20-0 at that point, and then Tobias Klein kind of snatched it midair off a McPhee pass and took that 37 yards. And then the next play, there was Maria Creo fumbled the kickoff. So St. Vincent got it right back, couldn't do anything. But the game was kind of already written in stone there, Gus. It was St. Vincent was doing what they did all year. They took care of business just like St. Vincent did, and undefeated in league, undefeated completely. Their first 10-0 season ever. Their only second undefeated season of all time. I
I
believe it
think
was
it's
19.
their so third ever undefeated season. I'm pretty sure ever. Their last one was 1988 when they went 8-0.
Oh,
But I
right,
think they
right,
had,
right. You're right.
but I
Sorry.
believe they had one more. I think they had one more undefeated season, regular season. I think even like in like the 50s or something like that, from what I had heard. But anyway,
But
so
still, I mean, the
yeah,
school's been
still,
around for like 105 years. I mean,
right, exactly.
that's still a crazy feat. So yeah, they roll confidently in the playoffs. Maria Creo for what they've gone through all this past year. I mean, credit to what Jay Higgins and company has done. We've been talking about it all year. They've been hit with loads of
Yeah.
injuries. Got hit with the flu a couple weeks back. But yep, St. Vincent, NBL Redwood champions. I don't think anybody really expected anything other. We expected teams to be competitive, like Maria Korea, like Ukiah, but I think from the get-go, Gus, St. Vincent was a team to beat, and from this point on, they still are the team to beat because they are the back-to-back NBL Redwood champs.
Yep. Pulling this note up right now. St. Vincent went 8-0-1 in 1951. So, and actually, maybe it was 9.
Unbeaten, yeah.
Actually, maybe it was 9-0. Now that I have my notes up here, I think I might have steered you wrong there. I think I got this. I got this from a St. Vincent guy over there. I thought it was 8-0, but it might be 9-0 now. Now that I'm looking at my so. Anyway, yeah, no, again, amazing regular season for St. Vincent. They're the number 1 overall seed for the NCS Division 7. Looking like they're probably going to be the clear favorites to sweep to their second straight NCS title. We'll kind of get into some more of our playoff stuff here coming up. But yeah, also Kai Hall, again, a guy to watch here. He more than likely will set that Redwood Empire all-time rushing record this week in their playoff opener against Hoopa Valley. So great win for St. Vincent, 10-0 in the year. Moving on over now to the VVAL. Man, brutal end of the season here for Petaluma. brutal end. American Canyon 35, Petaluma 23. Petaluma has to settle for second place in the VVAL. Vintage and American Canyon share the league title, but Vintage gets the automatic qualifier because of the head-to-head win over American Canyon. Petaluma coming into these last two games against Casa Grande and AmCam, they controlled their own destiny. A win over AmCam would have given them at least a share of the title. Two wins would have given them the outright title, and they settled for second place. So unfortunate end of the season for Petaluma. They had their chances in this one too. They had twice. They were within American Canyon's 5, and they're usually really deadly rushing attack. Just couldn't get it done. Came away I think with maybe one field goal out of those two chances, but they just couldn't punch in a couple of really good opportunities to score. Henry Ellis, really good game passing for him. 10 for 22, 118 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, all 3 to Dawson Shaw. He only had 3 catches, but they were all touchdown receptions. And then another strong game for over 100 yards for running back Silas Paul-Georges. But yeah, Petaluma kind of has to lick their wounds and turn around because they have a big NCS Division 4 opener this week against Cardinal Newman. We're going to preview that one in a little more depth here in a sec because that's going to be one of the playoff openers that we're going to cover this week. But any notes on this game before we keep moving on here, Keenan?
No, like you said, man, just a terrible way to end for Petaluma. Lose the Egg Bowl on the last second play, and then just kind of all the balls in your court. All you got to do is win the game at home too against American Canyon and the title's yours. And that's just that's just the way football rolls, I guess. Like I said, five league titles were decided this weekend, and not one was not more crazy than the other. But speaking of our next one, the NCL one, the most complicated league title thing that we had to go through, but Clear Lake did clear that up for us a little bit. No pun intended. They beat Cloverdale on a last second score, 22-21. So they hang on to the NCL one title. Cloverdale, they had the title in their grasp, especially after the win against Willits. They kind of squandered it a little bit for lack of a better term. But they had this game in their hands too. They were up big early, up 27-7 in the second quarter. Clear Lake went ahead with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then on the final drive, you get intercepted just to end it. That's brutal way to end, but kind of ends a wild season for the NCL one. And any other notes on that one?
Yeah, Cloverdale's been. Again, they clutched out that double overtime win against Willits kind of early on in league play, and then they were on the wrong side of a couple just heartbreakers. They lost to, Clear Lake, obviously, last couple minute loss. I believe they lost to they had a couple other. I think they might have lost to Kelseyville late as well. I want to say they also lost to Middletown late as well. I'm getting a call from Upper Lake right now too. That's never good. So they had a couple of games here where it just laid down the stretch that they really just had games in their grasp. But I know that again, they have a freshman quarterback, they have a new coaching staff, they made some big strides kind of this first year under this new staff. But I think the future looks good for them. But yeah, just definitely some growing pains for sure this year. But both teams again qualified for the NCS playoffs. Clear Lake, were they number 3 seed? I want to say, and actually,
no, they're 2. They're 2.
Oh, they're the 2 seed. So actually, funny story too, because these are 2 teams that will also actually be matching up in the first round of the NCS Division 2 playoffs this week. So quick turnaround, quick rematch for these 2 squads coming up this week. But so we'll kind of see if Cloverdale can get it done the second time around. So all right, that was actually let's do our final league title game here, and then we'll do a little bit of cleanup with some other games. But Roseland University Prep 22, Potter Valley 14, RUP 5th straight win. They come away with the share of the NCL3 title. They split it with Tamaulipas. Again, we've talked about this group all season long, but this is the 3rd season ever that our RUP has had a football team. They began their program in 2018. They had a couple of years where they had to go on hiatus. One for COVID, one because they didn't have a coach. But they've come back. I mean, what a this is the second year for head coach DeJuan Miggins, who is he's the stepfather, I guess, of Elijah Qualls, who was one of the best players to ever come out of this area. He played for the Eagles for a while. He's Casa Grande grad. DeJuan has some coaching experience over at St. Vincent, and I think over at Casa Grande as well. But he's taken over this program. He's built this program from almost not the ground up. He's the second coach that they've had, but man, this season though, he's helped the team put in a ton of work in the off season. They actually, I've talked to some people there, and I have a feature coming out about them this week and kind of the rise of their program. But they have, I mean, this is a program that, again, they're only playing 8-man right now, but they have aspirations of playing 11-man. And for so often, we look across football, and everyone's like, oh, football is not is a dying sport and participation is dropping. But RUP, it's on the up and up right now. So RUP shares the league title in their third year of existence, heading into the NCS playoffs as well in 8-man football. Just a really, really cool milestone for RUP, with a very young program. So shout out to RUP for that one.
You done with RUP? Yeah, you know me. You know how the lyrics go, Gus. That's gonna be. I'm telling you, that's gonna be their theme song. Congratulations, RUP. It's a great thing. Great thing for them to kind of take that share of that title. So good on them. Last kind of cleanup game here. Rancho Cotati 49, Santa Rosa 3. Rancho kind of took care of business against Santa Rosa in their NBL Oak finale. Jacob Pruitt 100% passing with 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Saiba Jwale, two receptions, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dude, this kid is nuts, man. I'm telling you, Cal has got a good one. But five Rancho Cotati Cougars scored rushing touchdowns. Rancho closing it out in style. Obviously, I know after their game finished, all eyes were on the screen watching Cardinal Newman Windsor. I was talking with assistant principal Henry Sarlate, and he told me that once Kaize deflected that pass, the whole entire Rancho team went nuts until they saw the flag. So they thought they had the share, but unfortunately not. But either way, they still carry great momentum going in the playoffs. They are the 3 seed in Division 2. They got some good momentum ahead of them for sure. But yeah, Gus, anything else before we go into our rankings and looking ahead to week 12?
Yeah, a little final cleanup game that we should mention. But Annalee in shootouts this year. Name a better combination. But Annalee comes out on top of this one. Another crazy game. Annalee 50, Montgomery 49. NBL Oak for both of those teams. Annalee led 36-20 at the half. Monty rallied to take a 49-36 lead, and then Annalee rallied again for the win. The Tigers scored a late touchdown late in the fourth, then recovered an onside kick, and then quarterback Sammy Long had a 3-yard touchdown run with about 1:30 left. And then Annalee sealed the win with Will Bauer's safety on Monty's final drive of the game. So Annalee just loves to play these thrillers. I don't know how Dan Bourdain and Jared Brown over there as their coaches. They might want to get their hearts checked or their blood pressure checked after this season, but they've had some thrillers over there in Sebastopol. So but yeah, both Annalee and Montgomery. Annalee is the 3 seed over in Division 5, and Montgomery sneaks in there as the 8 seed over in Division 3. So two teams again ending the season heading into the playoffs. So I think that's the last cleanup we have. We also had again a couple other results, but Casa Grande finished out the regular season with the 24-14 win over Justin Siena. They're in the playoffs. Sonoma Valley 28-21 over Napa. They're in the playoffs. And then Piner smoked Healdsburg 48-16. Healdsburg 0-10 on the year.
Not good for your Greyhounds.
Hoping for some better days ahead for my Greyhounds, but we'll see how the future looks over there. But all right, moving on now to our Week 12 rankings. Just a quick note on this. This is going to be our final rankings for a while. We're going to be holding these off, or at least waiting until the playoffs wrap up, and then doing kind of an end-of-season rankings. But for the meantime, these are going to be our final rankings for at least a couple weeks until the playoffs wrap up. But Yeah, not much new. Actually, nothing new really in this week's rankings. Windsor still 1, Rancho 2, Newman 3, St. Vincent 4, Casa Grande still 5. Bubble teams, Annalee, Petaluma, Montgomery. Also, Ukiah and Maria Carrillo. Those last 2 teams are the only out of that, whatever those, that 10 that we just mentioned that did not make the playoffs. Couple and honestly, both of them probably got a short end of the stick here.
No,
Ukiah,
not probably. They did.
yeah, Ukiah finished the year 6-3. They were left out of the Division III playoffs. Montgomery got in with a 3-6 record, but I would probably argue that the NCS seating committee looked at Montgomery's strength of schedule over Ukiah's. Montgomery playing in the NBL Oak, week in, week out, Windsor, Rancho, Newman, that's a really tough schedule. While Ukiah did have, 6 wins, playing in the NBL Oak competition, maybe not, not quite as high, I guess, as it was over in the NBL Oak. So that probably played a factor. We don't know for sure, but yeah, Ukiah 6-3, missed out on the playoffs. That's tough. And then same thing with Maria Carrillo. They were a bubble team over in Division 4. Cal Preps ratings had them as the number 7 overall team in the NCS Division 4, and they missed the playoffs. Now, a quick note on that, but so Newark Memorial is the 7 seed right now in the D4 playoffs. They won their league, even though even though Cal Preps had them ranked as the number 11 team in D4. If you win your league, you automatically qualify for the playoffs. So Newark Memorial qualifies due to that. And then basically it became a choice for the 8th spot between Maria Carrillo and Concord. Concord, I believe, was 8-1. It looked like a better overall record against their division. Maria Carrillo did play a much stronger schedule, but I guess the committee saw 8-1 record and a 3-0 record against teams in their division. Over Maria Carrillo 4-6 and 1-1 against a Division 4 team. So unfortunate for those 2 teams. I mean, again, Carrillo has been, both teams in the NBL Redwood. Carrillo obviously, had a number of tough games, go against them, early in the season, but they had a ton of injuries too, or later throughout the year. But just a tough way for those 2 teams to end, I guess, going finishing the season, potentially making playoffs and then not. So
Yeah, I guess that's just how the way things roll sometimes, man. It's just unfortunate. Some teams gotta kind of not take one for the team per se, but kind of get.
There's always going to be someone who's on the short end of the stick. So.
I know who's on the short end of the stick there, so that's pretty unfortunate. But yeah, those are our rankings. Like I said, not coming out again till playoffs are over. So if you're sitting in those top 5, congratulations. You're going to be in there for a little bit, for a little while. But yeah, Gus, let's head on to our game of the week preview. And things I wouldn't say are getting interesting for us. I mean, I guess they are, but because there could be a possibility where in these playoffs where our Sonoma County teams play out of area teams, our right. Game of the weeks may be a little different than normal. But for this week, for the first round of playoffs, obviously it's a pretty much a no-brainer. I guess you already mentioned it. Cardinal Newman, the 3 seed versus Petaluma, the number 6 seed in Division 4. Gus, and the last time these 2 teams played was in the 2009 NCS Division 2 quarterfinals. That's when Petaluma was the number 1 seed. Cardinal Newman was the number 9 seed. Petaluma won 28-14, then lost to eventual section champion Eureka. So Eureka, Petaluma, Cardinal Newman being in the same division in Division 2 just shows you how far NCS football has come, because they're now in D4. But yeah, clash of similar styles, Gus. I mean, obviously we know both teams like to pound the rock, but interesting thing here is that both teams are coming off losses, Gus. So how do you think this one kind of shapes out?
Yeah, obviously Newman coming off the Windsor loss, Petaluma coming off the 2 straight losses to Casa and American Canyon. It'll be an interesting battle. We'll get into our predictions here pretty soon, but I think on paper it probably looks like Newman would be the heavy favorite, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. But again, I think that we've seen multiple times this year that Petaluma has the firepower to keep up with I guess potentially superior teams. I mean, again, they beat Vintage. Newman also beat Vintage this year too. So again, these are. Newman's has been a top 5 team for us all season. Petaluma has spent some time in top 5. These are 2 very good programs here. having very good years. So I think it should be an exciting battle, but I think Newman probably is the favorite in this one. Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it could be interesting. Could be interesting. Well, we'll see how both teams respond um, to their losses, obviously. So, all right. So, game of the week. I will be there. By the way, I will be in Santa Rosa for the Newman Petaluma game of the week. After last week being at St. Vincent Marie Carrillo. Gus, let's get into our Week 12 predictions. Last week, our records. You got a game over me, 8-2. You were. I was 7-3. Um, Overall, updated from week 11, 86-33. That's Gus's record. I'm 81-37. The games that hurt me the most, obviously, Newman and Cloverdale. Could have gone either way, though. I mean, let's be honest with it. With those close games, could have gone either way. Teams that hurt both of us, obviously, Petaluma did us kind of dirty a little bit in our picks there. But yeah, Gus, let's head into these playoff predictions, my friend. Here we go. It's playoff time. Starting in Division 2, number 3, Rancho Cotati versus number 6, Livermore. Coach Garrick Hodling hopes that they are hot coming off their big win against Santa Rosa. Their pretty convincing win where everyone was playing just amazing ball. I personally don't know too much about Livermore. Gus, you may know a little bit more, but regardless, I'm going with the 3-seed Rancho Cotati Cougars in this one.
Livermore 8-2 on the year. They finished third in the EBAL Valley, which I believe is the more competitive of the East Bay leagues over there. Yeah, I mean, win over American Canyon, big win over College Park. Their two losses were 38-30 to Foothill, which I believe is they're number 2 overall seed in NCS Division 2, and then they also lost to Dublin, which I also believe is a playoff team too. So.
I believe Foothill's the fourth seed.
Oh, Foothill's fourth. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, again, the East Bay Valley League is always very tough. Or just the East Bay League in general. I mean, they're kind of the same way where they're split. I think they have two different divisions, but the East Bay always has some really talented teams. Rancho Cotati historically has had some pretty decent success over some of those teams. I know last year they lost to Foothill in the North Coast section playoffs, but. Yeah, I mean, kind of same thing here. I think Rancho Cotati does beat Livermore. This game is at Rancho Cotati Friday, 7 o'clock. Yeah, we're still so far. Jacob Pruitt has been awesome. As Rancho Cotati's quarterback. I think he the future is bright. I think for the Cougars as long as he's around, and it seems like he's going to be. He's kind of rounding into he's getting better too as his games go along, and I think it's really important for him and his development in the Cougars too, for him to get some reps here kind of late in the season. Obviously he had to get thrown in there because of Liam Keeney's injury, but he's performed really well. But there also is a small chance. I know that you were hanging out with some Rancho Cotati people at the St. Vincent game on Saturday, but there's maybe a chance that Liam comes back at some point in the playoffs. He's still kind of slow in his recovery, but that might happen. But yeah, I think in this first round matchup, I think Rancho Cotati does get past Livermore and maybe sets up a really good battle with Campo Lindo in the quarterfinals. So yeah, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm taking Rancho in this one.
Long story short, Gus is going with Rancho, folks. All right, Division 3, moving on. Number 2 Windsor versus number 7 College Park. Obviously, Windsor getting the 2 seed, right behind El Cerrito in Division 3. Obviously, well deserved. I mean, they've been playing great football all year, and I think that great football continues. I think they kind of bounce back from the not the greatest game versus Cardinal Newman. Bounce back at number 7 College Park. I just feel like. Unfortunately for College Park, they got a real tough draw, especially with the number 2 seed Windsor at Windsor, by the way. So, yeah, going with the Jaguars.
Yeah, College Park. So this was one of those teams that was kind of on the fringe there over in Division 3. I mean, yeah, again, the CalPreps rankings have them as the 11th overall team in Division 3, but they went 5-0 in the Diablo Valley Athletic League, so they get to clinch an automatic spot. This is also a team that had some controversy around them. They beat Ignacio Valley, which is a local rival of theirs, 84-0 a couple weeks ago. Kind of spurred some controversy. I believe their coach and their AD were suspended for that, because of that result.
Correct.
Kind of seemed like they ran up the score a little bit. And anyway, they put up a ton of points. Maybe their strength of schedule He's probably not up to what Newman's is, or of what Windsor's is. So yeah, I mean, again, I think that this is probably a Windsor dub. I think that they bounce back from their lackluster offensive performance against Newman, and yeah, they keep rolling. So Windsor in this one.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, Gus. Interesting matchup in the other D3 game here. Number 6 Casa Grande at number 3 American Canyon. Obviously, for those who've been watching all year, these are this is a matchup between two VVAL teams. American Canyon took it over Casa Grande at the death in the regular season. Casa Grande looked like they had it won. American Canyon stole the win from them, but ended up pulling it out late. And this is one we're split on. I'm going with Casa Grande. Gus is going with American Canyon. I really think Casa Grande should have beaten American Canyon in that first game, and I think they've obviously kept that in the back of their minds because that was something that kind of not ended Casa's VVAL title hopes for the year, but definitely put it in limbo. So I think Casa Grande gets this one back. I know they're the lower seed, but then again, anything can happen in the playoffs, especially between two league teams as well. So I'm going to Casa Grande, but Gus, you're going with the Wolves.
Yeah, I'm just doing this to light a fire under the butts of the Gauchos. I know John Antonio is going to see this, and he's going to be like, yeah, he'll probably text me.
I don't think you're as influential as you think you are. Maybe they're already motivated, Gus. You don't know that.
This is true. This is true. I know, and I do agree with your point. I do think that it's very hard to beat the same team twice in a year. And I could absolutely see Casa Grande winning this game as well. I mean, like you said, it was 23-22 last time these two teams played. American Canyon scored late, got a 2-point conversion late. It was, it really came down to the wire here. This game will also be at American Canyon again, same side as the last game. Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is a pick 'em. I think this could go either way. I think Casa Grande absolutely has a good chance of winning. Like I said, it's hard to beat a team twice in a year. I just think American Canyon is playing really well right now. They've won 3 in a row, beat Casa, beat Justin, and then they beat Petaluma. Those are 3 pretty solid wins. So, yeah, I think American Canyon. I think it'll be close again. I think American Canyon sneaks this one out, but I also would not be surprised if Casa won. But I'm taking American Canyon.
All right. Last game in our D3 slate, number 8 Montgomery versus number 1 El Cerrito. We were just talking about, the rankings and Maria Carrillo and Ukiah kind of, getting the short end of the stick. Montgomery kind of sneaked in that number 8 spot in Division 3, but they have the toughest draw out of anyone in Division 3, no doubt. El Cerrito is just such a powerhouse, Gussie. You know this. You've been following him for a couple of years, so for that reason, I'm going El Cerrito.
El Cerrito has they're 10-0 on the year. They were 5-0. They went 5-0 to win the Tri-County Rock League. Get this stat, Keenan. They have one forfeit win. It looks like against Hercules, but outside of that, they have allowed just 54 points on the season in 9 games.
Yeah, especially in the Tri-County Rock League, that's unheard of. Yeah,
they are very, very talented. They're the number 1 seeded overall seed for a reason. They have wins over Freedom of Oakley, which is a very, very good team. They have wins over Foothill. Obviously, we talked about them. They have a win over Vacaville, the team that beat Cardinal Newman earlier in the season, and then Salesian, who I know is a smaller team over there, but still, El Cerrito is legit. They are a 1 seed. They're as legit as they come. They have a ton of D1 prospects. And I just think this is going to be too difficult of a matchup for Montgomery. So, yeah, El Cerrito in this one.
Virtus, we love you, man. But El Cerrito.
Tough draw.
All right, Gus, our game of the week: Cardinal Newman versus number 3 Cardinal Newman, versus number 6 Petaluma, 7 p.m. Up in Santa Rosa. We just kind of touched on this in our game of the week preview. Won't put too much more time on it, but I'm going Cardinal Newman.
So am I. Yeah, we also talked about this earlier. I think Newman has the defense kind of geared up to stop a good running attack, like Petaluma has. We kind of saw that last week against Windsor. Really kind of stopped a very potent attack, ground attack from them, and I think kind of plays out a similar script here. I think Newman takes this one.
Yep. All right. Go into Division 5, number 3 Annalee versus number 6 San Rafael. The Bulldogs travel to Sebastopol to take on the Tigers. San Rafael is one of those interesting teams that you don't really know how to gauge because they lost to Terra Linda, or they beat Terra Linda like very closely. And we know Annalie. We know what Annalie can do. So I just don't see this one being as close. I know I said off camera that it was going to be closer than expected, but I take that back because I think Annalie's offense, especially with a lot of those guys coming back now. I mean, I think
Yeah.
their offense is going to be too much for San Rafael, and Annalie takes it.
I think Annalie by a few touchdowns in this, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think there may even be a running clock second half. And I do like my guys who were at Center Fell when I was working at the IJ. I wrote some good. I wrote some stories about them, and I like their athletic administration. And I like, this is a great job. They have a new head coach, and Casey Sully, who was a former offensive coordinator over at TAM, and he's really kind of turned that program around. That was really struggling for a number of years. I don't know when the last time that they made the playoffs, but it's been a while. So, yeah, I think Center Fell is a program heading in the right direction, but this is a very tough matchup, and I think Annalie wins by a couple scores. So.
Yep. Staying in D5, Sonoma Valley snuck into the playoffs, didn't sneak in. They beat Napa, so they're in. But they got the number 7 seed. Unfortunately for them, they got to play the number 2 seed Miramonte at Miramonte. Another very high quality program. Credit to the Dragons for getting into the playoffs. I know this is a big deal for them, but unfortunately Miramonte is going to be a little too much for the Dragons this round.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, Miramonte is a very, very good program on the year. They're 6-4. They went 2-3 in the Diablo Foothill League, which that's one of the best leagues around here.
Easily.
Teams like Campolindo, Acalanes, Las Lomas. I mean, Miramonte went 6-4 and 6-4 overall and 2-3. They lost their final 3 games of the year. But that just shows how strong that the Diablo Valley Foothill League is. So very, very tough draw for Sonoma Valley in this one. Again, great season for Sonoma Valley to get back in the playoffs. First time since 2017. But yeah, Miramonte is going to be a lot to deal with in the first round. So I think it's Miramonte in this one.
All right, headed to Division 7. Number 7 Cloverdale at number 2 Clear Lake, and you look at those two seeding numbers right there, and people would normally think, oh, the 7 seed's going to get whacked by the 2 seed. Not the case this time around, because they are 2 NCL1 teams playing each other. This could go either way, just like the last game did. Last game of the season, last week, Clear Lake just edged it out on a last-second touchdown, beating Cloverdale. This is kind of a pick 'em, just based off how the last game went. But we're going with the Eagles. We're going with the Sonoma County boys. Gus, what do you got to say?
Yeah, kind of same thing. We talked about this game earlier, but it was close. Cloverdale led. Gave up their lead late. And then lost by 1. And like we were talking about with the Casa and American Canyon game, it's hard to beat a team twice in a year. So I think that Cloverdale, again, it's also crazy. Like this is such a rare occurrence for 2 teams to play each other at the back-to-back weeks like this too. So I know
or just play each other twice a year.
Twice a year, exactly, and especially back-to-back weeks. So yeah, this will be a really interesting game. Yeah, Cloverdale, again, barely lost to Clear Lake, and I'm sure that, there's going to be a lot of adjustments being made. Again, vice versa for Clear Lake as well. But I know that, again, Cloverdale executed their game plan really well. I mean, I know that they saw some opportunities on special teams to kind of, to take advantage of, and it sounds like they did that. So they executed well, but they just couldn't close it out. So I think second time around, I think they might make the adjustments that they need to win this one. So I am also going Cloverdale on this one. I'm saying they bounce back, 7-2 upset, and we'll see where they go from there. But Cloverdale.
Yep. All right. That wraps up our Friday slate. Going into Saturday, we're staying in Division 7, Gus. Number 1, St. Vincent versus number 8, Hoopa Valley. That's going to be at 1 p.m. They got some big boys up there in Hoopa. No doubt Trent Herzog is aware of how big those boys are, and their physicality. But I think St. Vincent has been on such a roll lately, and I think the main difference is going to be the Mustang speed. I just don't think Hoopa Valley can keep up with the speed of Kai Hall, Jared Bosard, all those athletic guys offensively that St. Vincent has. I think St. Vincent continues their momentum. They're going to head to 11-0, I think. And Who knows? Who knows what will happen in the second round? But for this round, I'm going St. Vincent, and it looks like you agree.
I don't think St. Vincent is going to really have much of a game, I hear, until I think maybe the semis or even the championship game in Division 7. Yeah, I think St. Vincent by, I don't know, 20-30 in this one. I don't think this is going to be close. No offense to Hoopa Valley, but as we've seen, St. Vincent is clearly the cream of the crop over there in D7, and I don't think they're going to be in any jeopardy here of an upset. So St. Vincent by quite a bit.
Yep. Yep. All right, headed over last game, our 8-person playoffs. Gus, number 2 Branson versus number 7 Roseland University Prep. Obviously, we talked about it earlier. What a huge feat it was for Roseland to nab the share of that league title. But when it comes to 8-man football, there's really only 2 powerhouses that we can think of: Branson, the number 2 seed, and the number 1 seed. My alma mater, Stuart Hall. Go Knights! But so with that being said, I really wanted to pick Roseland University Prep in this one, but just to kind of save my record a little bit, I do think Branson is gonna win by a good couple scores. Branson has obviously kind of established themselves as an 8-man powerhouse to my disdain, but yeah.
Their only loss, or one of their only 2 losses of the year came to your Knights.
That's right, baby.
So, yeah, Stuart Hall is the number 1 overall seed, like you said. But this is I mean, again, there are a few very, very set, developed 8-man programs kind of around here, and then in the North Bay. Branson is for sure one of them. Stuart Hall is for sure one of them. And yeah, Branson also won the NCS 8-man championship back in 2018. I think when they first started doing NCS 8-man championship. So, I mean, again, this is just kind of a classic traditional powerhouse in Branson versus kind of the new kid on the block in Roseland Prep. So Roseland Prep has had an awesome season. They storybook season, and again, I'll have more on that with the feature on them hopefully this week. I've been delaying that for a while just because other things have coming up, but same kind of thing. I think that the Cinderella story probably ends here in the first round, but I mean, just to make it this far for Roseland Prep is a huge milestone for them, and I think they're destined for good things going forward. But I think Branson is probably just going to be too much for them in this one. So I think the season comes to an end for the Knights here.
Yep. I mean, who knows? I mean, they could pull off the unthinkable. So
I mean, Roseland Prep has won 5 in a row. Like, they're clicking right now. So crazy things have happened. But yeah, I guess we'll just find out on Saturday.
Yep. All right, that wraps up our football coverage from last week and for this week. Some other notes. I got some, Gus. I know you got some. But Roseland Collegiate Prep volleyball headed to the NorCal tournament. They play tonight at 6 p.m. against Berean Christian. So good luck to the Grizzlies in that. In that tournament. Tennis, obviously Maria Carrillo girls. Their top doubles team of Kayla Nguyen, I believe is how you pronounce the name, and Colleen Morris. They won the NBL tournament, so they're headed to the NCS tournament. We'll have an update on you with a full schedule for tennis, because I know NCS singles are coming up and NCS doubles and NCS teams, and it's just a whole plethora of tennis. But Gus, you got something with cross country, is that right?
I'm also trying to look up what we didn't do this beforehand, but I'm trying to look up what the NCG or the CIF the NorCal girls golf tournament went, because we had Newman had a player there. But while I'm doing that, North Bay League Redwood, the VVAL all wrapped up their championships on Saturday. Montgomery girls won their first league championship in 20 years. Upset, I guess unseating Maria Carrillo, who's historically been a dominant force there. But I mean, sophomore phenom Hannah Thompson at it again. 16:20, I believe she ran at Spring Lake, second fastest time of all time for a girl at that course. Second behind only Julia Stamps, obviously, who was a legendary. I think she went on to win the a national championship that same year where she set the record. So Hannah Thompson, led the pack. Montgomery had the top 3 finishers: Amory Lacefield, and then also Celia Kittlestrom. So Montgomery, I know that they were very happy. First league title in 20 years. Big win for them, and they're probably destined for more stuff going forward. Their sophomore class is stacked. So they're off this week, but next week, or the 19th, I believe, is the NCS championships, and Thompson should be the favorite to win. I believe it's D3 over there, so we'll have more coverage of that coming up in a couple of weeks. For the NBL Oak boys, Jude DeVries from Montgomery won the individual championship. I believe he had the 3rd fastest all-time ever boys time run at Spring Lake. But Maria Carrillo, I believe, had something like five or six, so like top 10 finishers, led by Sean Gubera, who was, I think, 3rd place overall. But so Maria Carrillo brings home the NBL Oak boys title in that 16th title in school history. That's the most now ever in the Redwood Empire. I believe they were tied with Montgomery heading into that one, so they're now top of the food chain. I mean, again, Maria Carrillo has a historically great cross country program, but now they're number 1 overall for titles. NBL Redwood, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so forgive me if I get anything wrong here, but Ukiah boys, I believe, won their first league title in the Redwood. First league title for them, I think also since like 2001. It's been a long time for them as well. I know Caden Anderson, a sophomore from Healdsburg, was the individual champion. And then on the girls' side, Annalie came away with it. I believe they had something like crazy, like 5 or 6 again, top 10 finishers on that side. And Annalie again is kind of stacked going heading into NCS as well. So those are your champions: Montgomery girls, Maria Carrillo boys, Annalie girls, Ukiah boys, and then over in the VVAL, it was a clean sweep for Casa Grande. The Gauchos won both the team titles over there. So it was this is kind of the we're getting here to the kind of closing home stretch here for a lot of these fall sports. So football playoffs will obviously run through Thanksgiving, and if we have any state championship team level teams, those will be they'll be playing into December. But NCS championships for cross country coming up here in a couple weeks, and then CIF state championships will begin in the weeks after that. And then I believe girls golf is now finished. Volleyball, RCP is the last team alive over there. And then we'll have the tennis championships coming up here pretty soon too, which I think which again we'll have some local teams, and an individual in Montgomery's Carolyn Beard, who could also go pretty deep as well for on the individual NCSD side. So anyway,
lots of stuff, man.
Lots of red. Anyway, it's been a busy fall. We appreciate everyone for listening and tuning in. And I really do hope to kind of keep doing these things. Even past football season, past the fall
no
season.
Doubt.
And the schedule will get a little wonkier kind of once we get into winter sports, and basketball is playing a little more often than football does, and wrestling and soccer and all this different stuff. So we do plan on kind of keeping this going as long as we can this year, and doing it as consistently as we can. But it definitely means a lot for people to be tuning in and listening to us week in, week out with this. So I don't know how many people still are listening to this point in the podcast, because I'm sure people come for the football and then leave once their team is mentioned. But no, again, if you have made it this far, and if you have been listening all season, thank you. It's been fun doing these things, and so we hope to keep them going as much as we can. So
yep, no doubt. And as always, my Twitter is @KODorty22. His is @JustCusPD, and our main account is @PDPreps. You can follow all of our results, analysis, things like that. PressDemocrat.com/sports/PDPreps. Once again, we appreciate you guys for watching. We'll see you next week after the first week of NCS playoffs, and we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.